Hi, everyone. This is Lindsay. We're going to get started here. Just a reminder to use the Q&A or chat feature in WebEx to submit questions, or if you're listening via phone, go ahead and send me an email, and we'll take questions throughout. At the very end, we'll try and unmute the call to take verbal questions. So just if you can mute yourself, even though I have you muted, so that when we unmute the line at the very end, we don't get a lot of feedback. With that, I pass the floor to Alma.
Thank you. Everybody, thanks for taking some time out of your lunch to listen on the state of practice for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is always a very exciting topic, and in my mind anyway, I think for a lot of people, there are all sorts of fun things happening in the industry, and we get to talk about them today. It's very exciting. So join me, won't you, here and talk about cybersecurity. So we're going to cover then the practice at a glance, talent review, our position and posture, including competitor analysis, market trends, tools, and cybersecurity solutions, our key ongoing customer-facing initiatives, sales support activities, and our internal programs, risk mitigations, et cetera, et cetera. So jumping right into it, our practice at a glance for cybersecurity. What we're trying to do for our cybersecurity mission is really, ultimately for cybersecurity, it comes down to being able to help customers to better understand and manage their cybersecurity risk. Now, it's really, really easy to say. It's incredibly difficult to do. As you know, IT has exploded, and not only exploded as far as the number of devices, but the interconnection on devices, the service providers that we're going towards to get our various services for any organization, the amount of data and the criticality of the data that's stored on systems. The complexity is just continuously, it continues to be just exponential growth in complexity of being able to actually secure and manage systems environments to protect data and to really assure that that data is there for that business, that organization, whenever they need it. So again, it's easy to say we're going to help them to understand, well, what is your risk right now, and then to be able to bring that under some sort of acceptable level of control, but it's a very difficult thing to actually successfully do. So our goal then, we're trying to help take some of that complexity out of the equation for customers, help them better understand, with enterprise architecture, really helping them better understand themselves first and foremost, and then we can use enterprise architecture and business analysis as two very strong tools that we have in our tool bag to be able to help them then manage that risk. So our solutions that we have, we're going to talk about them today as well. They can help optimize security programs to those specific organizations. And again, we're using enterprise architecture and business analysis, as well as other tools Robbins Joya has to help them to do that, to help them to also guide them to intelligent investment decisions and security capabilities and technologies, and really to help them to adapt continuously to the changing threats in cybersecurity. As far as the practice leadership, that's me. We do have another position that we're looking at to get basically second command for me to help a lot with some of the day-to-day cybersecurity efforts, both on the business development side as well as the execution side, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But right now, I'm for better or worse considered the cybersecurity SME in Robbins Joya. And joining me, we have, thankfully, we do have a deeper talent pool that comes out of our DoD and Air Force work they're represented here. They're doing a lot of certification and accreditation work, assuring that the systems that Robbins Joya is implementing across the Air Force, that those systems are following DoD policy, that they're properly secured, they're properly monitored. So we have a background there, and that's also a background that we're looking to extend elsewhere in the federal government market on the civilian side. As far as the talent matrix, for those of you who have listened to a few of these, and I'm sure everyone who's on the call has heard at least one or two of these already, from the employee survey, we're looking at alignment for our cybersecurity professionals. We're going to talk about this. The next slide here, let me just go ahead and hit the next slide. We don't have as deep of a talent pool of cybersecurity. It is more of a specialty area, but even though it's a specialty area, a lot of the other skill sets that we have in Robbins-Joya definitely apply and support cybersecurity programs. So digging into these numbers for, as we surveyed these 185 employees, where do they come back and rate themselves with their comfort level with the cybersecurity services that we have, that we are promoting to our customers. Again, we're looking for really, 7 to 10 is where we want to see, a larger number of employees. We want them to be able to be comfortable with the solutions and to be able, and services, and to be able to help in executing those services for our customers. So right now we are on the low side. For the highest level of expertise of any of our services that was rated is the information security service. Now, that's a pretty generic term, saying information security as a service. What that actually is our legacy certification, accreditation, federal government, sort of FISMA service, where we're going to, again, help customers, whether it be DoD or federal civilian government, to be able to understand, follow the FISMA process, follow the DoD guidance, to rate their systems, to be able to document their security plans and programs, to be able to have assessments done against those, find out the unmitigated risk, and then be able to have someone, either accept or reject the risk that's remaining, so we know whether we can operate those systems or not. So that's our information security service, and that is where that 28% of people felt comfortable with rating themselves, which is only 15% of the Robbins-Joya workforce to answer the survey. So obviously, if that's the highest one, then we have a long ways to go towards towards having a larger talent pool of cybersecurity and having this be something that we can really march forward with a lot more force and certainty. Now, the rest of the services, if you look at the other averages, overall we averaged about 8% familiarity of the workforce with all of these cybersecurity services across the board. So some of the lowest ones we had were when it comes to governance, optimizing security policy, and implementing governance. That's rated low, as well as our enterprise security continuity risk assessment. So the more detailed we get, the less comfortable our general employee workforce is with cybersecurity, and I think that's to be expected, but it is something that we want to see get higher. So today we have high 28, average of 8. We would like to about double those numbers for next year, and we have a number of ways we're going to go about doing that. So we'd like to see 56 employees comfortable with these cybersecurity services and be able to rate themselves to that 7 to 10 range, and average to be closer to 20. So we'll be working a lot at informing everyone here about what these are and what that means to deliver them to the customer. As far as market position, cybersecurity is a huge field. So it encompasses everything that IT encompasses and more, just has a different lens on it, again, focusing on. And when you say security, when you say cybersecurity, one of the first things that we had to talk with our business development team about was that to not be intimidated when someone says cyber. Cyber really is information security. Cybersecurity is information security with very, very few differentiators. If you're talking DoD, using cyber security instead of information assurance or information security, that could denote that they're talking as well about offensive cyber capabilities, so the ability of DoD to be able to launch attacks. That's not really an area that we're playing in. We really are sticking more into the traditional information assurance, information security roles, but you will hear cybersecurity thrown in synonymously with those other terms. So, as you hear that, don't be intimidated by it. It's the same type of thing we've been talking about for a lot of years. It's just the new cool way to talk about information security is by calling it cybersecurity. You tend to get more funding that way. So when we talk about our marketing position, again, huge market space, and there you have everything from some basic staff augmentation to have a very low domain understanding of cybersecurity and not necessarily ability to execute solutions for customers That's at the very low end, the bottom left here. At the top right, I'm putting the full scope cybersecurity service providers. So someone who is going to do soup to nuts, they're going to run all of the intrusion detection systems, all of your antivirus, all your hardware. They're going to help you manage risk. They're going to help implement policy. They're really going to do everything for you. So we are trying to stay cleanly out of both of those two areas. We are never going to be a full scope cybersecurity service provider where we're going to be able to do everything for everyone. Right now, so what we are looking to be is to be able to have a very high level of domain understanding overall and be able to help organizations on that top left corner with being able to execute, to assess their cybersecurity posture and to be able to appropriately make cybersecurity strategies to help them to be successful. I think there's good margins that's in there. It's something that really goes along well with our company's legacy, and that's my target for what we would like to do, what we'd like to focus on. Now, where we have been and where we currently are as far as what we do with cybersecurity is that certification accreditation type work that we're doing in Department of Defense. It's good work if you can get it. It requires some moderate domain understanding, but it's there's some very strict processes that you would follow to actually go through and do your job. It is a little bit more regimented, so it doesn't require as high of a level of expertise, and there's a lot more competition in doing the certification accreditation type work. So if we can get it, we want it, but in general, the margins are going to be lower, and there's going to be a lot of competition. So we would like to position ourselves, more in that domain expertise area as we move forward.
I have two questions that came through while you're talking. How do you see our traditional information assurance fitting within your vision of a cyber practice?
So, I mean, we absolutely need to have that skill set for a number of reasons. And actually, I think the traditional information assurance, one, those are employees that we can train and that we can leverage in some of these other engagements. So it only takes a couple of SMEs to be able to go in and set the tempo and be able to organize our efforts when it comes to executing a solution for a customer. Once you're off and going in the correct direction, we can very, very easily use, especially our folks who are already doing cybersecurity, because they have that domain expertise. We already know they're good employees. We already know they can execute. They're absolutely invaluable for us as we expand into other areas. In addition to be able to do like short-term augmentation and things like that. If we need to go to a Honda aircraft company for a month, maybe we can borrow some resources from DoD for a short time to be able to deploy them and help in the private sector and other areas. So definitely that's a work pool that we can use now in a lot of different areas, but also continue to develop and get more into that SME assessment type field so that we can better position ourselves with our clients. The second area, of course, is we are trying to extend that field. We are trying to get more work with doing assessment accreditation. In Department of Commerce, we have a large proposal to do assessment accreditation as a service. Assessment and authorization. They do A and A, it says C and A, as a service. So instead of just providing them bodies, we're giving them a fixed dollar amount and saying, look, we'll get it done. We'll flex resources where we need to make sure that your mission deadlines are met, and you don't have to worry about any of the details. We're providing all these things for you. So it is still a good area to be in for a lot of different reasons. The work is steady and consistent, but we would like to try to get out to doing this more as a service instead of being basically staff augmentation where we're just providing bodies, because the margins are going to be much, much lower there. So lots of area and room for growth for that traditional work.
Great. Another comment and question that came in. It's clear that RG is changing rapidly. What can we as employees do to get more involved in your practice, and how can we help?
So one's going to be participating in the brown bags, obviously. And I have to make a call to Rich. Rich actually put together some good presentations last year, and I'm picking on him here, but I'm going to have him present one of his presentations he put together for one of the brown bag sessions on how DoD is evolving into the NIST framework. So if you're listening, Rich, surprise. But we've been talking about that for a while now. So that's one, is participating in not only presenting, but obviously, in those sessions. I would like to be able to find opportunities for our other employees to do like short assignments, whether it's we can send them some work from Department of Commerce, perhaps, where maybe we need someone to review some security documentation for an engagement we have. So that's one aspect, as well as be able to help with really with bid proposals, like proposal writing, things like that. So there's those areas. We also need to make sure that we have all the correct certifications for our employees. Most people, DoD have one. I definitely encourage you to get more certifications. And I myself am going to be looking at, SANS instructions and other places and some conferences where we might be able to go to, get more training and assure that we are on the cutting edge of our cybersecurity domain understanding.
Okay, another one I have. How do you see that NIST framework interfacing with EA frameworks like DODAP and FEA? Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, all the NIST requirements in that framework, I mean, it provides you with a set of requirements. So that's first and foremost. As we go out and do all of our engagements, we're doing program management. You don't do program management and cybersecurity practices differently than you do program management in any other organization where we're doing program management. The only difference really is, the requirements that we're bringing to the table that we're incorporating into our program management plans. So it's very much the same thing there. So with enterprise architecture, I've actually found that be a really invaluable tool to first understanding the organization at its most granular level before we then build our cybersecurity controls and take our, decide what tools we need, because we have, we need to derive requirements. We can't really derive the requirements until we understand the organization, understand what they're trying to do. So I think enterprise architecture gives you that contextual understanding of that organization that you really need to be able to do an adequate job of then applying what NIST is really. It's, it's the cybersecurity, it's a risk management framework, right? So it all comes down to, to assessing, so first of all, discovering, identifying what it is you're working with, collecting all the information about it, understanding things like business impact analysis of systems, your system ratings for how critical the data that's stored in there is. And then as you understand those things, it helps you to select those controls that you need to apply to those systems to be able to adequately manage risk. And then, of course, there's more assessment processes that go along. So I guess to answer the question a little more directly, I think enterprise architecture is really a precursor to a lot of those efforts that you apply to break down and understand at a critical level the organization, all the various elements of it, including the data, including the systems, and all of that then can be used to do a much better job of adequately modeling your risk and using the NIST risk management framework.
Okay, I have one more before we let you continue your presentation. I heard there was a cybersecurity strategy session in February. Would you consider hosting a brown bag and sharing with us the outcomes from that session?
Oh yeah, it's a great idea.
Great, so I will coordinate that for
you.
Okay.
We can do that one, yeah, we can do that one first and do that one on the 21st.
Great, okay. That's it for now.
Great. All right, market trends. A couple of numbers from Gartner and a few other sources. It should be no surprise, based on things we talked about, that cybersecurity, that there's not less spending on cybersecurity this year than there was last year. So globally, you're looking at increases of about 8% in cybersecurity spend every year. So 2013, basically $66 billion. 2014, $71 billion, and we're projected for about a $77 billion IT security spend, worldwide for cybersecurity. So it continues to go up. It continues to be more important, and I'm guessing for 2016 we're going to see another, higher line. So more and more organizations are paying attention to this and are really, they have the checkbook out and they're ready to do what it takes to improve their cybersecurity posture. Now, there is the impact of attacks and the increasing adoption of mobile cloud and really social media and other information. Those are all driving new security technologies and services in 2016. So there's just so much change that's happening, and security experts and really organizations need to get on top of that when it comes to the security field. So that is driving a lot of new spend. In addition to, there are a lot of new security technologies that are coming out. They're trying to help to bridge gaps organizations have had in the past, whether between, there's a lot more now, obviously, than just basic antivirus and firewalls. There are some extremely complex tools and capabilities that can be employed by organizations, and really the solutions that they're bringing to bear are almost as complex as the problems and as the things that they're trying to defend. So that's another area where customers really need help navigating, is understanding which of these new solutions that they actually need to be able to help to protect their organizations and really just meet their security requirements and support the organizations that they're trying to support. The largest growing segment in that is the data loss prevention segment, which has been growing 19% over the last year. And again, data loss prevention, that actually signifies a lot of traditional security spend is spend on infrastructure. So you're trying to secure the desktops themselves. You're trying to harden servers. You're buying firewalls. So the fact that data loss prevention is actually growing is a reflection that a lot of the data is moving out of traditional network architectures and traditional server farms that are owned by organizations where you can walk down the street and hug a rack that has all your data in it, or walk down the hall. More data is moving to the cloud. More of the applications that the organizations are using are provided as a service in the cloud. And so what that allows organizations to do then is stop focusing just on protecting the hardware and actual infrastructure and the PCs, and start focusing more on protecting what they actually care about, which is the data that's riding on those systems. So I actually see that as a good thing, because focusing on the data, that really is more directly in line with supporting the mission of whatever your organization is. Securing the infrastructure is a means to an end of securing that data. So new security technologies are creating opportunities to improve effectiveness as a result of better understanding of security threats using contextual information and other security intelligence. So what that means too is that when it comes to patching and doing some of these other, a lot of it is infrastructure protection roles, that there are a lot better tools to provide security professionals with more visibility on how are we doing with patching, where are we most vulnerable right now, not with some of the federal government's legacy efforts. It used to be every year you'd get a scan, perhaps, or every 3 years sometimes you'd read your documentation. The drive now is to be able to know today, where my weaknesses are and what I need to actually be addressing. And then on the threat side, which we'll get into, I think just after this, there also is an easy availability of tools that attackers can use, both malicious code or malware, as well as even being able to purchase infrastructure for doing things like denial of service attacks that can be leveraged very, very easily by numerous different threat actors. And so that increase in threat activity, which we'll get into, that certainly is contributing to this need to increase spending in cybersecurity. So talk to us a little bit. Again, things are changing. We're no longer, obviously doing mainframe. All these evolutions in technology, going from the mainframe to standalone to being networked to being now interconnected and connected to the internet, which is one of the largest things that's opened up a lot of vulnerabilities, to being now mobile enabled and then ubiquitous access, where as an employee, I expect that on whatever device I'm at, wherever I am in the world, I'm going to be able to access the data that I need to do my job or to do whatever it is. Huge changing paradigms in IT. Obviously, cybersecurity has had to follow those changing paradigms. As closely, the transformation in IT is closely reflected. The transformation in information security obviously has had to follow that. So by 2015, roughly 10% of overall IT security enterprise products will be delivered in the cloud. By the year end of 2015, 30% of infrastructure protection products will be purchased as part of the suite offering. So again, getting away from those traditional roles and evolving how you do information security. And by 2018, more than half of organizations will use security services firms that specialize in data protection, security risk management, and security infrastructure and management to enhance their security postures. So we're not all doing it in-house before. It's hard to find security talent. I've cited that in just a bit here. Let me see where I'm at before I'm going to be awful on time. All right. There's a lot of bad guys that are out there. Hackers and hacktivists and nation states, and there are some even that cross the line between being a cyber criminal and a nation state and a hacktivist. And what a hacktivist is a name for an activist that uses hacking as a tool to usually try to bring some social issue to light. I think the rest of them you probably have an idea for. You've probably heard already that China has been extremely active and has a massive espionage program that has been hacking both U.S. government as well as the private sector of the United States. Russia in this last year has also been extremely active, especially when it comes to trying to exert influence over some of the areas where there are now either military conflicts, or Ukraine, for example, or potential oncoming conflicts, as well as trying to really get back to the United States for applying sanctions to them. So it's been alleged that Russia has been hacking the U.S. banking industry and the stock exchange. One reason for that potentially is because they're looking for technologies to stand up their own stock exchange, but also part of it can be retaliation to the United States for sanctions, against Ukraine. So some of these hacking efforts are extremely political. Iran has been fingered for a couple of different very significant attacks against private sector companies in the United States. One being Sands Casinos. Apparently, the CEO of Sands Casinos had made a statement that said that he thought that a nuclear bomb should essentially just be dropped over Iran. And a short time later, someone went through and installed a piece of malicious code inside numerous systems in Sands Casinos that went through erasing and deleting data and brought down a good majority of their IT systems. It probably would have brought the casinos completely down if it weren't for a lot of those systems being mainframe type systems that wouldn't run this particular type of malware that was focused on like Windows PCs. And of course, the Sony attacks that was allegedly attributed to North Korea, where someone is doing a movie that's making fun of Kim Jong-il, which they made a lot of very, very heated political statements about opposing, including at the UN, and making actual threats. Sony actually goes to release it, and someone hacks into their network and releases all of their data out to the open internet, and goes about deleting systems and just causing havoc in general. So lots of lines being crossed there, and from a hacker-hacktivist perspective, a lot of these like people who maybe would have been hackers before, maybe they have been doing some nuisance before, they have this platform of hacktivism now they can latch on to be able to hack and then have some proposed cause or reason why they're doing the hacking, and they'll just take the data they take and just dump it out to the internet just simply to embarrass organizations without any other real reason necessarily for doing that. So I'm going to skip through that because we're running out of time still. Okay. I think in my comments I tend to allude to things that are coming up a lot. It's just how my mind works. So unfortunately, my slides will sometimes repeat that because I get ahead of myself, I'm saying, so I apologize there. But again, we are, as far as the market goes, cybersecurity started with physical security, securing mainframes, securing the rooms. Obviously we've evolved out from that, into a very complex area of security that encompasses not only physical, but everything else you can think of. In the federal government, it's FISMA primarily that established the requirements that we're doing, both in DoD and civilian, the private sector. And then also in the private sector, regulations haven't been as strict traditionally. There are some things there like PCI, like the standards that the standards that the credit card industry has been required to put in place if you want to still be able to run American Express and Visa and things like that, those cards through your systems. You have to abide by the PCI standards. Internationally, there are other standards you have to abide by for cybersecurity, but a lot of those haven't been really very strict standards, and there are some of the things that you have some audit requirements, but having a successful PCI compliance audit does not necessarily mean that you're absolutely secure from being able to be hacked. So, while traditionally there are a few reasons, not as many as in government, but some requirements for doing cybersecurity in the private sector, and it varies sector by sector, it hasn't been driven home as much by regulatory compliance as has been in government. There are more efforts with things like HIPAA as well to enforce, for example, for healthcare, to have more security in place. But again, a lot of what has been there hasn't been really enforced or followed very strongly. Those things are starting to change as this becomes a much more serious issue. So the increasing dependence on information, I'll talk about that. In the private sector as well, now increasingly cybersecurity is accepted as a board issue. It's not just something that's IT guys' problem to deal with. People understand that this can affect your business in a very, very serious way. And so now boards are asking questions and taking notice and trying to figure out, I think most of them are really trying to figure out what they should be doing with cybersecurity, what their posture is today, and really who they can trust. So actually there are a lot of folks out there, some of whom we've worked with, like the Chertoff Group, for example. And they're essentially trusted advisors who play very much initially at that board level to try to help tell the board, inform them about the threats that are out there and give them some basic understanding of what they need to be doing to try to control some of those threats. But of course, then there needs to be a handoff to someone more at our level really, who can actually then go execute on some of those recommendations and figure out how does the organization actually need to adapt and evolve to be able to make this program become a reality. Okay, again, in the private sector, there is a lot of cyber criminal activity that's helping to drive some of these trends. And on the nation state and cyber criminal side, they're definitely hacking and releasing information and stealing data for healthcare, retail, transportation, critical infrastructure, entertainment. I have examples for all those that we definitely can't get into today. Data breaches are increasingly frequent. A lot of times that is external hacking. Sometimes, though, it is actually unintentional data breaches from internal employees that just are not handling data properly. They're not securing, they're not using encryption. Sometimes insider threat, but again, it's a much more serious issue, especially as more states implement data breach notification laws, and even at the national level there has been some emphasis towards, some push towards trying to get better data breach notification in place so that if my personal identifiable information or PII is lost from any company that might have that they would then be required to notify me. They would be required to provide me some sort of credit monitoring or protection, and they're going to try to make it better versus just having to sit on that or being able to sit on that type of information and data. It is difficult right now to find cybersecurity talent. As of last year, it was reported that the cybersecurity job market, that there was a negative unemployment in cybersecurity. So more people looking for cybersecurity professionals than there are cybersecurity professionals looking for work. It's been like that for a little while now, and that's it's driving some good things. It's driving some development in cybersecurity education and training programs at the university level. It's also driving a lot of high wages for a lot of organizations who really are trying to get serious about cybersecurity. So in the financial sector, it's not uncommon for a CISO to make, I'd say, between $300,000 and $500,000 salary, at a medium organization. So there's some crazy salaries being demanded, and even for good analysts in the field around the DC area, it has been really expensive to get good analysts in, and then very difficult actually to be able to keep them employed, keep them retained, because they have so many other opportunities in close proximity. I actually talked about this, I think I have another slide about this. I talked about this yesterday at a conference about some of these cybersecurity workforce challenges with finding and recruiting cybersecurity talent. Again, both the IT and really the programs, cybersecurity programs, it's very complex and difficult to deal with. More of the private sector especially is going towards managed services. The government for a long time has obviously relied on contractors to be able to execute a lot of the non-inherently governmental support functions such as cybersecurity, but they've generally done that in-house. So they'll hire a contractor. That contractor will go and use government equipment inside a government building, sitting in government space to do a job much like a government employee would have done if they would have bothered to hire a government employee. This managed security services is definitely changing that paradigm, where now you have organizations that are installing sensors and monitoring those from non-government facilities, and sometimes they're even doing virtual security operations centers where you'll have analysts across the country that can work from home, that can be working on, have a single pane of view that's viewing both private sector and potentially government customers, threats that are happening in real time, so they can respond adequately and also share intelligence across all those threats. So, and actually that's a really great thing to have, some of those services, since it's so difficult and to find and then hire a lot of those cybersecurity talented professionals that have experience directly with dealing with, for example, advanced threats. So the more that you can share those across multiple customers, the more likely you are to be able to get your money off of those and be able to afford to have some of that talent, at least on a part basis. So in the government, we still are driven primarily by FISMA, by the Federal Information Security Management Act, which is part of the eGovernment Act of 2002. Most of those efforts are around this certification accreditation, which is really going back to the NIST risk management framework, and then the requirement that we all have that the agency heads must be accountable for cybersecurity, and that there are regular assessments, ongoing of cybersecurity programs. The biggest difference on the federal government side has been, again, a push towards what they're calling CDM, continuous diagnosis and mitigation. And what the CDM program is using security tools to be able to get that real-time or near real-time, within 72 hours really, awareness of what is my security posture, and usually talking about vulnerabilities versus talking about threats, which threats are harder to measure because you know what you have seen, but you don't know what you didn't see, what you didn't catch in your sensors, because threat actors are obviously always changing the way they'll attack you and their techniques. So it's hard to measure a threat. But vulnerabilities, even though they're easier to measure, we haven't been, as a rule, measuring them very well in the past, and certainly with any sort of frequency. So the emphasis right now, and there are some large BPA contracts in place to execute on the CDM, to be able to implement these technical systems inside the federal government and DoD that will give agencies, CIOs, and others an understanding of where am I at today, and then at the ground level for information system security officers, system administrators, they can use those same tools to figure out, what it is on their systems they need to do today to patch, to make it more secure, to get usually their scoring that's involved. So really it's to get their score up and to improve their scorecard, whatever the case may be.
Okay, I have 2 questions that came through. The first one, they've been trying to learn more about cybersecurity and sort of absorb as fast as they can. So can you give a brief rundown on what continuous monitoring is and how can it fit within our solution?
Yeah, so continuous monitoring is actually defined in NIST, and some people think that it means that you have to know in real time everything that's happening at a given point. You don't. What continuous monitoring means, as it's defined in the NIST Risk Management Framework, is that you have a frequency and methodology for assessing each and every security control that's in your catalog of security controls you have applied. So for some things, continuous monitoring, you could say, well, every month I'm going to do a review of employees who have administrator access to ensure that the right employees are still on that list and that nobody else has been added. That's technically a continuous monitoring control, even though it's not what most people think of when they talk about continuous monitoring. Now, the way that it's evolved is, again, much more to be this machine speed, near real-time understanding of what is happening right now. So there's more and more emphasis of getting people out of the process as much as possible and using automation to be able to provide you with a status of vulnerabilities and really an overall idea of security posture for your environment versus having someone do something manual at a less frequent interval to be able to get you some results. So it's really, again, trying to make that data is already out there for the most part of it. There's already scans that are being run, but the data isn't necessarily being leveraged well, and certainly leveraged in a way, dashboard and things like that, where it's presented to decision makers to help them understand, again, was my posture, and what do I need to be applying resources towards to be able to improve that security posture. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, then please let me know.
The part 2 of that was how can it fit within our solution?
So interestingly enough, we actually do have a continuous monitoring solution. Let's see where we're at. It's down here a bit. I'll stop by it. I don't think we have time today to go over the solutions, but we'll stop at the solution. You just keep going indefinitely.
Not indefinitely, but yeah, do your presentation. If they have to drop off, we're recording it. They can come back.
Well, I think I'll mention them today. I'll go into them in more detail, I think, another time.
And I have one more question whenever.
Okay, so we did create a solution for doing continuous diagnostic mitigation. I think it's continuous cybersecurity risk assessment, I believe is what we called it. And that solution is actually leveraging heavily on one of our partners who's doing that at HHS, that's using DefensePoint to be able to really implement the systems, along with being able to use us with more of our ability to get requirements, do strategic planning, do executive dashboarding, to be able to really help when it comes to that executive level of making sure that they're seeing the right things to help assure that they're meeting their security requirements, whatever those might be. Now, I will say, though, that I think personally we were a little bit late to the game with our continuous monitoring solution. We missed the big on-ramp for the BPAs, so we're not signed to a BPA. And right now, for doing continuous monitoring, the government is essentially required to go to someone who's on that BPA to get those services. So we really haven't had any notable leads for CDM type work because, again, we missed the bus largely. We do still have CDM type capabilities as part of our overall cybersecurity strategy and policy solution. So there is a piece that's in there because I do feel that it's an important strategy to be able to have, it's an important capability to be able to have to do information security right if you're planning a security program. So there are elements that are in there, but right now we haven't had a lot of traction with having us go in and actually implement the technical aspects of that, which, maybe that makes sense too, because we're not really, that's not really where we position ourselves. We're not doing a lot of the really, really deep technical level work anyway. We really want to be working higher in that stack. Okay. So on that, federal government, that's their big push. They are doing a few other things that are notable, but you probably had a chance to look at that already. As far as the competition goes, we have a strong brand, not really in cybersecurity, so we're not really commonly known for that. And at the same time, we do have, I would say, extremely heavy competition. I was really actually extremely surprised when I came on, just at the number of colleagues that I knew that were doing, similar things to what I was doing, frankly, leaving the government, going to a, small mid-sized company who has a brand new cybersecurity practice that they're standing up to compete on government contracts. At the same time as all this is happening, everyone's saying, oh, hey, cyber is a new big wave. Let's all move and start offering cybersecurity services. At the same time as that was happening, this was when government had the sequestration issues and started issuing fewer contracts for cybersecurity. So I think we have a lot of suppliers that are ready to go, ready to offer solutions of some kind. Some of them are, I think, a lot better than others, but sometimes it's hard to differentiate that, especially when you're looking at a contract review perspective, when you're evaluating bid proposals. It's hard, just like looking at a resume. Sometimes it's hard to tell the guy who really knows what he's talking about from the person who put the right buzzwords in on their resume. So we have, it's challenging, I think, right now. So we're trying to choose our way very carefully through this very, very heavily funded market. Now, similar with enterprise architecture, which Chris talked about, which had FFRDCs, like MITRE and others, that might be given preference when it comes to being able to do some strategic initiatives. Same thing happens as well in cybersecurity. They're not overwhelmingly doing a lot of work, but the type of work that we want to do, the strategic type of work, we are going to be knocking heads with the MITREs and some other organizations like that have a leg up when it comes to being able to have preferred vehicles with the government because of their status. And I don't know if anybody's former MITRE, but I'm not really impressed with most MITRE folks that I see. So on the spectrum here, again, we also have, if you look at the top, we have a lot of really, really large, really noticeable, recognizable companies. For anyone who's doing anything involving the government, building airplanes and things like that, well, they also have well-funded cybersecurity programs. And on the left side here, you're talking about organizations that are running something that's more of a full scope type of program. So they're strong, they can provide personnel, they can provide tools, they can provide capabilities, and they can do it kind of soup to nuts for the most part of it when it comes to cybersecurity. Now, getting out of defense contractors, all of the auditing firms, basically, they either play just a strictly audit role, they'll come and help you assess cybersecurity and do strategic planning of cybersecurity, or some of them have even crossed a little bit over into also offering services and offering security analysts and things like that to particular sectors. So they're all players. People like HP is now a player in offering services. Dell is now a player in offering cybersecurity services. Sometimes those are more geared towards infrastructure, and they're more limited sometimes, the type of services that they offer. They might not be doing strategic planning, but again, they're people that we're going to be competing with as we venture off into this. And then you have the traditional security companies that at one point were offering antivirus, McAfee and Symantec, for example. Those companies have expanded their offerings. They have a much larger portfolio of tools and capabilities and services, and now managed services that go along with those. So being able to offer security as a service to small and medium companies that can't find the right talent or don't have the correct resources or can't afford to bring everything in-house to do it all themselves. And FireEye is actually probably one of the strongest brands right now. They are a newer company, and we actually have some good partnerships with FireEye, but they're doing their very best to be the new go-to for information security, tools and services that they can do it all for you and is the have all and all experts. Now, on the smaller side, we have put defense point security on the left. We'll talk about defense point security in just a minute. Now, government, you all know, both in the civilian sector as well as DoD, there are a lot more small business contracting that's being let, which causes a challenge for us. Now, we are just getting our feet wet here. Using our partner, we're on the small side certainly when it comes to cybersecurity. We couldn't, we can't pull, 50 people onto a contract without, some significant staffing efforts. So we're just starting out on this curve. We do have some good strategic partnerships that can help us out as we get our feet wet, and we actually are right now in our Department of Commerce, Immigration Customs Enforcement, getting some very good past performance to help us to build both our experience as well as our bench that we have for offering cybersecurity services to different companies. So not great, but at least we're on the road and we're moving down that road.
Can I interrupt you with 2 questions?
Please.
On the topic of data breach protocol, if we internally at RG have and/or identify a data breach, who do we report it to? Is it to you? We talk to Milt, our FSO, or our business leader?
Milt.
Milt. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Milt handles the IT security. I will, and of course he'll be working closely with Chris. Yeah. I'll say Milt, and Chris might be Milt will call Chris.
Okay.
If that's wrong, then Chris, I think, is listening. Let me know if they should call you instead. They shouldn't call me.
Okay.
I will absolutely. I help advise for RG. So if that's the situation they have, I'll definitely be on the phone talking with Chris, talking with Milt, and giving my opinions and recommendations on how we handle that breach and what we might need to do to be able to improve RG security to assure it doesn't happen again.
And then the other question is, do you have collateral available for any of these offers that we were talking about, specifically oriented for commercial clients?
Yeah, so in the along with the services, we have our cybersecurity bifold. So it's both on Synergy as well as I think it's out on our public website. If you look at cybersecurity on our RG public phase, we have our 4th main cybersecurity solutions. Our solutions. I believe we have our service offerings listed there as well, and then we have the cybersecurity bifold, which was really targeted towards those board members to help to prompt them to say, okay, what are the things that I need to actually be able to know about my organization and be able to honestly answer if I'm going to feel like I have cybersecurity, and if I'm in control of cybersecurity, I understand our risk. So we have a series of questions specifically designed really for the private sector for their use. The other services are agnostic. The solutions, are agnostic to government or private sector, and I'll cover those in a second. So that.
And before you continue, I'm going to unmute so Chris can contrite to the conversation.
Great.
Chris, are you there?
Hey, real quick to whoever asked the question about data breaches and notifications. Alma's spot on with our request to notify Milt. We have several different things that we are required to provide the federal government as a government contractor. For example, Milt is required to keep a log of any security breaches and threats, and we have to report those to DIS. So he is your first point of contact. On several times this year, the one that kind of comes to mind most recently was an attempted breach. You'll find this kind of humorous, where Brad received an email, or actually the first one was Ben received an email from Jim Lido. The email address had been spoofed, and it asked him to wire $450,000 to a specific account. Now, that's kind of it's an unnormal thing, but we actually tracked that back. Well, Alma, where did we track that back to? I thought it was one of the nation states in Africa, right?
I can't remember on that one. It's definitely on the cyber criminal side, usually we're running out of South Africa. They're doing those. So a lot of the guys who have been doing traditional, so 419 fraud, right? The traditional Nigerian scams. A lot of those guys are now focusing on also, small and medium organizations trying to social engineer, trick them into sending, larger amounts of money versus just sending, $3,000 through Western Union, whoever, to your dear aunt who's lost in Nigeria, or to your Russian bride who needs airfare to come over, whatever the case may be. And actually, that's very interesting too. I mean, that's a whole nother brown bag, right? But actually, these guys are leveraging information in LinkedIn to be able to figure out who in the organization is most likely to, call somebody else with a request for a lot of money. And it's not RG, it's not unique to RG. This is actually happening to a lot of companies where they're impersonating other members of the company, trying to go to the CEOs, other people, or go to the whoever holds the purse strings to get large amounts of money, wired out of the bank accounts. And actually those scammers as well are starting to use more malware, more malicious code in their attacks, whereas before they used to be purely social engineering, so they, convincing you to do it. Now they're employing some of the same tools that the hackers and nation states try to employ as well. The other cyber criminals, Eastern European ones, that have been doing small-scale bank fraud, stealing your banking credentials out of your web browser. Same thing. Now they're looking for small and medium-sized organizations for bigger paydays to drain $500,000 or $1 million instead of getting a few $1,000s from the onesie-twosie mom and pop bank accounts.
So I guess the point that I wanted to get across is, in that particular instance, immediately when Jim did not respond, about a week later, Ben got he's got the exact same email, but this time from Brad. So the point I want to make is we're not going to talk a lot about some of the things that happen like that. In a closed forum like this, it's not so bad. But the last thing I want from a cyber perspective is to talk about the sources and methods that we're using to defend the network. We have a Cisco ASA architecture, self-defending network. So the stuff is there. Please use Milt as the kind of the gatekeeper, and then we do meet with Milt, and we'll assess when we bring folks in. We've considered going in. There was another situation where we had to do some, I'll call it some diagnostic research about a threatening email that was made against another employee. Alma and I worked pretty closely on that one, but it generally will bring in the resources as needed, but Milt should be everyone's first point of contact for those types of things. Lindsay, I'll just mute myself in case I have to jump in again, but thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. If you want more of my thoughts on talent pool than what I've already discussed, which I think I've beat it to death, but actually I spoke on this again at the Governance, Risk, and Compliance Summit yesterday. Actually, I think they have those sessions online, so I might be able to dig those up. But it's a challenge for everyone to find good cybersecurity people. It's leading to a lot of different alternatives that people are having to use. The one I mentioned for us when it comes to cybersecurity talent or the lack thereof is that I've been very pleasantly surprised at the ability inside Robin's Joya to leverage some of our other skill sets to help execute on cybersecurity initiatives. So Honda Aircraft Company, we had really it was a cybersecurity initiative project, but we had very, very minimal cybersecurity expertise effort that went into that cybersecurity project. I was involved. I wrote a lot of stuff for it, summaries. I gave a lot of recommendations, but the heavy lifting was done by our business analysts and enterprise architects as well, to go down and understand the organization, document the requirements, map out the system interconnections. And those guys don't have, they're not certified information system security professionals. They don't have certifications in that. But, again, there are plenty of things that we can do with our current skill sets that absolutely are invaluable to the assessments and the strategies that we're helping to implement for customers. Other than our in-house, we do have some other help as well. Again, Defense Point, who used to occupy the space that we're sitting in today, who are now across the parking lot here at Canal Center Plaza. They keep growing. There are over 100 employees now, I believe. They have a GSA Schedule 70 small business, and they are focused purely on cybersecurity, which by itself can be a differentiator. So they're not building airplanes to, they are just focused night and day, everything on cyber. And they have particularly good expertise when it comes to technical configurations and implementation, so really security engineering. And when it comes to analysts, they have analysts in every security operations center inside the Department of Homeland Security, and a lot of them inside of Health and Human Services. So when we need to get something done, we need boots on the ground. They're probably, if we can't do it ourselves, if we can't hire in, Defense Point is going to be our preferred first call. We also are now partners with Immunity. Immunity is they're a global leader in penetration testing space, and what that is they actually put their hacker hat on, and they will attack an organization as if they were a hacker. That's how they'll approach doing an assessment, and they'll figure out, if I was a bad guy, what would I do and how would I do it, and what vulnerabilities are there that would allow me to basically have my way with this network and with this data. And so that is a skill set, again, extremely difficult to find, especially find people who are actually trusted. Chris, you probably get a kick out of this, and others. Last week, I believe there were, I can't remember if it was charges. I know there's a lawsuit. There's actually a security company who was providing security services who actually hacked the company first, and then they stole a bunch of data from the company, and then went to this company and said, hey, look at all this, your data that we found out there that some other bad guy has stolen. You should bring us on to do security services. No joke it is. The company went bankrupt because actually they made a threat and said, look, either you bring us on to do this, you pay us money to help secure you from hackers, or we'll report you to the FEC. And they said, no, thank you. And so this security company actually reported this company they stole data from to the FEC and the Exchange Commission, and actually got the company, eventually the company went bankrupt. Trying to fight through not reporting these breaches. So they're suing this other cybersecurity company now for a lot of money, and hopefully there'll be legal charges brought against them for actually hacking in advance of going in. And so yeah, most people I run to in cybersecurity community I consider to be, and Chris missed that whole conversation. It's just, he'll like it, I'll tell him later. Anyway, so there are some bad apples out there. These guys are very good and definitely trusted, and so we've actually put in a proposal to work with them for Honda Aircraft Company, and we'll plan to use them in the future when we really need someone to put on their black hat, their hacker, whatever, green eye shades, whatever the hackers do, and and figure out what could a bad guy really do. That goes beyond just vulnerability scans. And with FireEye as well, we signed an agreement with them so that we can leverage FireEye tools if we need to go lead an on-site assessment to figure out, put a sensor on someone's network and find out, are the bad guys already in there, and what type of malicious traffic are we seeing that's exiting the network that could be indicative of a problem. The tools actually follow very, very closely with those relationships. Again, FireEye is being a primary tool. Also, Wombat Security, we now have an agreement with them to be able to be a reseller for, they provide cloud-based security education training awareness as a service. So from one console, you basically enter in all the email addresses, You decide what modules, what training your employees need for cybersecurity, and it handles actually sending out and alerting, emailing employees, letting them know they have training they need to do, and providing them that training. They also go beyond that when it comes to actually assessing the overall information security awareness of an organization, both through advanced questionnaires and through providing actual phishing emails to employees. They're like they look just like an actual phishing email that might come from a cyber criminal or someone who's trying to do cyber espionage, but it's coming from this cybersecurity service provider instead. And if employees aren't paying attention, if they click on the link they shouldn't be clicking on, or provide information, then actually that there's an alert that goes out that cues that employee up for additional training to ensure that next time they get a suspicious email they shouldn't be clicking on, that they won't be clicking on it, because the next time it happens, it might not be a test, it might be an actual phishing email. So very excited about being able to use them internally in Robin's Joy later this year, and we're also very excited that they're one of our partners that we can leverage when it comes to delivering cybersecurity training education awareness as a complete service to other customers. And then Splunk, who DefensePoint uses a lot, and is actually they're the preferred service provider for Splunk for 2014, I believe. It's an incredibly powerful data mining capability that uses distributed systems to be able to think of it as Google for all of your data. You can put all of your security logs, all of your security events, every bit of data that you have, and it allows analysts to easily and quickly search through and find things about that, but also to be able to visualize the data, to be able to create dashboards, to be able to really come to understand what is it that we need to be paying attention to in this mountain of information security data that we have. So if customer needs that, we can lean on DefensePoint to be able to implement Splunk solutions for them. For capabilities review, I'm going to skip through this. We'll do another time. We have them, they're great. We had the question about where did it go? Oh, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong title. Continuous security risk assessment. That was built to be our CDM solution. It does leverage a lot of skill sets to bring a full CDM program into play, and we don't have time to talk about how that works. But I'll hit that in another brown bag what those solutions are. But at least we have them. We're one of the first practice areas to actually have solutions that are documented. There's we have marketing material for each of those solutions. The one pagers that tell you what they are and what you should know about them. For those of you who have participated in enterprise architecture training, as well as participated in some of the solution development training, you're also familiar with how we're building that, how we're putting that together, and these various elements, how we incorporate service offerings from across the firm to these solutions for our customers. So more on that in the future. Okay, customer-facing initiatives. We are right now, actually, we are a sub to DefensePoint Security inside the Immigration Customs Enforcement Security Operations Center. That's what I'm doing actually most of the time right now is not only providing ICE with cyber threat intelligence. I'm essentially their cyber threat intelligence team, but more importantly, in doing so, we're building past performance that we can leverage on future contracts, so we can provide intelligence as a service beyond contracts for doing cybersecurity intelligence in other areas of government. Inside Department of Commerce, Paul Stock is doing an excellent job in providing, he's the program manager for the Enterprise Security Operations Center there. That's their initiative to be able to implement a brand new enterprise security function at the commerce level that has visibility and provides services to every single operating unit inside the Department of Commerce, and provides really a common view and understanding to the Department of Commerce senior leadership of the security posture of commerce. They also have a role of being able to ensure that security events that are experienced in one operating unit inside the Department of Commerce, the information about that is rapidly shared to all the other units so they can coordinate response efforts. It's a big initiative. It's very, very high on the Secretary's list, and Paul Stock has, and Jim Yu before him have been doing a fabulous job in tracking all of the milestones and whipping everybody into shape to assure that we are doing everything we need to be doing when we do it to bring that capability to fruition. And they actually do our initial operating capability now at Department of Commerce with that Enterprise Security Operations Center. I'm also assisting on that contract on a part-time basis. And I've written the concept of operations for the Enterprise Security Operations Center. I've written the overall Department of Commerce incident response plan and done flows for exactly how all of the operating units should be reporting incidents both to the ESOC as well as to the United States Computer Emergency Readiness Team, to Privacy Office, everything else like that, and provided them with another document that's recommended logging standards and event feed requirements to the ESOC. So that's been keeping me busy. And again, the good thing about that is it builds us some very solid past performance that we can leverage elsewhere. And in the meantime, you know, we're like my salary is essentially paid for by, you know, those other engagements. So it gives a little bit of breathing room as we continue to develop our practice. We also, of course, have all of our work that's being done on Air Force programs. You know, we have our 6 resources that are over there, and forgive me for the mixed-up order here. So all of our Air Force work, they're doing cybersecurity, and we hope to increase that type of cybersecurity work and work in the Air Force in general, both in doing the type work, doing certification accreditation type work, as well as doing other types of cybersecurity initiatives. That's extremely valuable, and again, it not only helps us now, but it helps us in the future too from a past performance perspective. And then we've done some proposals over to Honda Aircraft Company for another assessment engagement to help them with their cybersecurity strategy. Still waiting on a response back from them. For sales support activities, John Strohecker and I spent hours and hours on the phone last year talking mostly to financial sector chief information security officers to tell them about Robbins-Joya and you know what Robbins-Joya can do for them for their security practices. I think we actually learned a lot from doing that. And one of the big things we learned, of course, is that it's hard to differentiate yourself. So you can't just come on the phone with the CISO and say, hey, we're going to help you with cybersecurity strategy, because they've heard it all before. So that's actually helped us to be able to craft and tune our offerings more to focus on things that differentiate ourselves from other people who are approaching them every day. And a lot of that differentiation has really come in our ability to do and apply business analysis and enterprise architecture, to apply those skill sets to cybersecurity programs, to help cybersecurity programs, and to help those organizations to better understand themselves. We do have one additional solution that's actually coming online that relies heavily on business analysis. We call it requirements-based access control. That is really a result of all those phone conferences with those CISOs to help them better understand themselves and then take that knowledge and apply it to their security program. We've been a little bit slow when it comes to the federal market space as far as getting out and getting in front of a lot of people. We have a little bit in DHS and a little bit in a few other areas, a little bit in FFA. Anyway, I say FFA or anyway, never mind. So we've been out there a little bit. We need to do a lot more in the federal civilian market space. And I think part of that is really just is my fault because there is some unfamiliarity with the cyber domain, and that's been intimidating. But I think that now from some of these offsites we've had, the sales team is more comfortable with what it is and what we can do with it. So we expect this year we'll make strides in the sales productivity, especially in DoD. We have some big initiatives coming where we are looking to build in a significant way our cybersecurity presence in the Department of Defense. So we're expecting big things there and more to come on that. Pipeline, we are chasing a few things in the federal civilian space, not Future Farmers America. It's FAA, not FFA. So we've been looking at FAA for a long time. That procurement's been delayed. We have we put in bids for DHS for a couple different projects in DHS that have been delayed for over a year to get us dance card in DHS. We have the Honda Aircraft Company security assessment that we talked about, and we have right now have 3 different companies courting us to try to get us on their team for the DHS Security Operations Center contract that's going to be coming out in the next month or two, and we're going through the process with our sales team right now of deciding who we want to actually go with of these companies who has the best chance of winning and what kind of slice of pie we might be able to get if we provide our expertise into that effort. And then we also have another very, very important one for doing assessment authorizations and doing the FSMA work at Department of Commerce. They want to leverage our PM vehicle. That doesn't seem like it was working, but we have another vehicle we think that they're going to be able to leverage, and that's, again, for offering that CNA, not just CNA, but as a body shop, but CNA as a service to them, which we hope will be able to be a service offered across all the Department of Commerce operating units, in addition to the Department of Commerce headquarters. So this year, I am updating the solutions that we already had. Again, we've learned some lessons about what's been working, what hasn't been working. So we're changing our solutions to reflect that. It shouldn't be a huge change, but we'll continue to tune and tailor those solutions as we become more sensitive to our customers' needs. Also, we're working on building some of those more formal models between cybersecurity and enterprise architecture. There's a lot of interest in that. I actually put in a proposal for an enterprise architecture conference to talk about this topic in October. I put that in last week, I think. So we are looking at that because we think that there is that's a unique area, and we can develop a really interesting story that we can and solution that we can bring to our customers by focusing on that. And also the Council on Cybersecurity. I've been a panel member for them and helping to maintain the 20 most critical information security controls. So if you want to know where you start, this is a list you can look at. It says, here's what you need to be doing at a minimum. So I'm on their panel. They're a not-for-profit, and they've actually just gone over into the Center for Internet Security, which is also a not-for-profit that helps a lot of state and locals. And so I'm continuing to assist them with those top 20 cybersecurity controls, and that's actually helping a lot because that gives us a good tool and a good story that we can leverage as we go in and do consulting when someone wants to know, well, where do I start and what do I do? We can leverage that and our experience there. For development, we are doing cybersecurity brown bags. We have 4 scheduled this year. First one, we've had to push back a little bit, but now on the calendar for May 21st. Hope you guys can make that. And I think your request is for what we talked about the offsite, which is some of the same thing, but we also did more. We'll cover the solutions at that one. We also we are investing in the Wombat security to improve overall security, information, education, training, and awareness inside Robbins Julia. So once you get that suspicious email, from I'm not going to say when it's going to come, but from now until whenever. You have to think twice about, now, is this really a phishing email, or is this potentially a phishing email that that we sent ourselves who's trying to test me? Either way, it's a test, but so just be cautious when you click, and don't get us infected, certainly, but also you could end up with remedial training as a result. And also, of course, we talked a little bit already about cybersecurity training. I'm looking at recommendations for that, looking at courses at SANS and other certifications that we can get. I do think it's very, very important that those who are wanting to get cybersecurity, that they can be able to look at some of these training opportunities and look at some of the certifications that are out there. No, I didn't switch color on this. Okay. So as far as Risk mitigations. You know, we definitely need more business development efforts in cyber. We have to get our name out there when it comes to cybersecurity. We have some things work on that, especially in DoD. We need a lot more of that so we can start telling our story to people and getting in front of them when it comes to cyber. Haven't done that as much yet. And also, again, looking at ways to really firmly tie in those business analysis, enterprise architecture, those capabilities into our cybersecurity engagements. I see that for us as a differentiator. And so I want to do a lot more with that. And then when it comes to internally focused, we're doing the brown bags and have that security training underway. And again, we're also looking for those additional skill sets. We do have a rec that will be hitting the street very, very soon. Where we're going to bring in some more another cybersecurity professional. The emphasis there is risk management, program management, business analysis. We want to see someone that has a very well-rounded expertise in those areas that can help build some of the areas where I'm not as strong, and then also can help with some of those business development efforts and some of our customer engagements when it comes to you know, building organizational cybersecurity strategy. I'm like 40 minutes over. Oh, I'm only like 23 over. Okay, so there's that.
I'm gonna unmute everybody in case anybody has a question. So please mute yourself. If you don't have a question, put your own phone on mute, please, and here we go. Okay. Any questions for Alma on the phone? You're all unmuted. Okay, I'm putting you back on mute.